nails. Cool.
If I want to wear my hair down.
Tony, you could think of like questions. If you think of anything, just be like, I have a viewer question. We'll take your questions live on air. That's a thing.
We're live on testing.
Oh, are we testing?
Yeah.
Are you testing or actually going?
Live?
We're live on testing.
We're live testing.
Live testing.
This is Andrea. So, like,
Right now, so.
you can see us, hear us. Can you hear us, Facebook land? Okay. This is Andrea Yount. We are preparing for a Therapy Thursday, our weekly broadcast on mental health topics. Therapy Thursday is brought to you by Affinity Counseling Services and A Lovely Pause. This is a test.
Affinity Counseling Services is located in Piggott, Arkansas, and Kennett, Missouri. We currently have 4 therapists in our office and are taking new clients. To join our sign-up sheet, visit counselingwithaffinity.com. And to find out more, you can call me, Kindred, at 870-324-5122 or 573-840-0440. Thanks.
And A Lovely Pause is a local nonprofit created to provide community education, awareness, coping skills, and support for those with PTSD and other trauma-related disorders. Subscribers will be receiving a Angry August coloring page. Pages, multiple. Sign up at alovelypause.com or click the button on our Facebook page to start coloring away your anger. Thanks.
This is a test. Our topic this week is controlling anger, and we're going to be doing 2 episodes today for Angry August because we will be gone next week. So controlling anger and anger and trauma are today's episodes.
With a special guest, Jillian.
Yeah, Jillian will be joining us for our anger and trauma episode. So I think we're about to get started. Therapy Thursday normalizes discussing mental health topics in a safe, supportive environment because not being normal is normal.
All right, welcome everyone to Therapy Thursday, our weekly installment here at Affinity Counseling Services, where we talk about different mental health topics from a personal and professional perspective. My name is Matthew Yount, lead therapist and president here at Affinity Counseling.
I'm Andrea Yount, and I am the vice president of Affinity and the chairman of the board for A Lovely Pause.
Stacy, I am a lead marketer at Hive Minds Marketing, and I am vice chair of A Lovely Pause.
And behind the camera, as always, taking your comments, questions, and concerns, I'm Kindred. I am the office manager at Affinity and the secretary of the board for A Lovely Pause.
All right, we're going to have to work on the confidence in your voice. I mean, you need to say that like, I am the secretary.
No.
Yes. Welcome, everyone. We are continuing our conversation on Angry August. We are talking about, what are we talking about today? Controlling anger?
Controlling anger.
Oh, boy. Well, this is something you don't have a lot of experience with.
Matt's just calling me out all over the place today.
Well, I mean, we all have anger issues. Some of us more than
Indeed.
others.
Mm-hmm.
And
Me more than others.
and we all have ways that we try to get those anger issues under control, even if that means sometimes it's just allowing it to burn out.
I will say
Yes.
that I got a little angry and snappy this morning and in my head. So I went to my car, took a breather, sang some songs that weren't angry,
Yes.
and then I felt a lot better.
You got angry while you were working out? Is that what it
Yeah,
was?
I was listening to Halsey and working out, and that is not, I don't recommend. I was
Well, why? I mean, you need to
dissociating.
be angry when you're working
Yeah,
out. And
but I started-
dissociation's great during workouts.
But it started coming out into my mood, and I was like, oh, I'm not liking that. So,
so you had to go like chill out and calm down?
yeah.
Okay.
Remove myself from the peoples and calm down.
So was it the people's? Oh, you're talking about not the people that were making you angry.
No, the people weren't making me angry. It's just that I was around people and I was a little snappy and I could feel it. So I just removed myself and calmed down before I let it project onto others because I could just feel it being like.
Yeah.
Well,
I get you.
that's management right there.
Exactly.
Man.
So, I mean,
Yeah.
who doesn't know how to control their anger? Not me.
Got this.
That's why it is situational. The situation determines like what type of skill you're going to use in order to control your anger. So, because some circumstances you're not going to be able to get out of while you're angry.
Yeah, and I'm not very good at controlling it in that situation. Like if I'm with people and I continually get that stimulus of making me angry, I've got to remove myself and calm down before I can come back, or I'm just going to be like all over everybody.
So let's talk about some of the different methodologies for controlling anger. It's situational. So some situations, if you have the capability to leave, sure, leave the situation if at all possible. But that doesn't necessarily help with the anger long term. It is a short term resolution to keep you from getting to a point where you're going to say anything that you might regret, or doing anything that might be out of character, out of the ordinary, something that could get you in trouble. It's just a way to remove you from a circumstance long enough not to do something ridiculous. But it's not good for long term, because all you're doing in that circumstance is leaving a situation. You're not solving any problems in that moment. So short-term response, yeah, if you can leave, by all means, good. But that's not always a possibility. Sometimes you can't leave a circumstance. Sometimes you get angry and like you're in the middle of a strong conversation, and leaving in that moment could actually make the other person more angry. That is one of the things about certain types of anger control, is it can trigger a response from another person. So if I'm in an argument with you and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to take a minute and I'm going to go calm down. You, if you had abandonment issues, might read that as you're leaving me.
Yeah.
And, oh, how dare you leave? And then that makes them angry.
Yeah, that just makes things worse.
Yes. So now they're in wherever you left them, agitated, frustrated, stewing on it, feeling all of those abandonment issues and problems. And then the person who's out there just like chilling out, calming down, and like, oh, okay, I feel better now. I'm going to go have that conversation.
Then they walk back into a wasp nest.
Yes. So you walk back in and like immediately they're like, oh, here you
Glad
go.
you're feeling better. 'Cause I'm not.
Let me make it worse.
So when you're in a circumstance where anger is involved, it is not always so easy to use certain coping skills because they can trigger other people. Some of the coping skills that you'll hear people say is like, take some deep breaths.
That actually does work, but you have to be, like, I was going to say that because, like, we talked about last week about Avery and I.
Yeah.
And our relationship and being angry and how we butt heads. So in a situation with her, like I had said last week, sometimes I'm able to express my anger because I have to be loud and blunt with her and shock her, right? So I'm able to be like, hush, just really loud and silence.
Shut it down.
Yeah, but that's not always the best way to do it. A lot of times that's what I have to do to get her to listen to me, but then after that, I have to be able to bring it down and not continue that level of...
Otherwise, it's just going to amp up.
Exactly.
The level.
Yeah. So when I'm like that, when I allow myself to, if I ever allow myself to get to that point where I have to be shocking, I have to already be in a place where I know that I'm going to be able to de-escalate from there.
Right.
And I'm not going to continue that so that it gets worse. So like being able to be aware of the situation of, okay, this is getting out of control, and then bringing yourself back to coming back to yourself for a minute, and then taking a deep breath. Because I think if you're just like angry and you're just, that's not going to work.
No, it's going to just like maybe signal something different to the other person that's in front of you.
And
If we're in the middle of an argument, I'm like, it could be
And a
interpreted
bull
that
coming at
way.
me.
I'm calming down. So we can't necessarily use all techniques in the moment. So sometimes, hey, if you can leave the situation, great. But if you can't, then other ways to help, like calm yourself down when you're actually in the middle of an anger outburst, especially if it's with another person. Because one thing that typically happens when you reach the point where you're in an angry outburst with another individual is that what's probably happened is both of you have been escalating it, whether it's quickly or slowly. You've already gotten to a point where you're frustrated with that person, and then you start getting in the mindset of, okay, I'm past trying to resolve the problem, and now I just want to win this argument. And how do I win? I get the other person as angry as possible,
Or hurt them.
Yes.
You don't want to get to that mindset of winning an argument.
Yeah, because there's absolutely nothing to win in that
No, it's
circumstance.
just
But boy,
emotion.
it feels good to be like the one who's like, "You're more hurt than I am, aren't you? Can you feel
So
that? Can
awful.
you feel it?"
And yes, we do get that way when we're mad, and that's so awful. And so I think like that's why it helped me with Avery, because she's my kid. You know what I mean? I don't want to get to that level with her.
Yes.
So like being able to bring that down and be like, "What are you doing, you crazy person? Come back a little bit off of that." And I'm talking about myself.
Yes.
Oh, I've been there too. I mean, we were talking about that the last episode, how the people that are closest to us oftentimes are the receivers of that side of ourselves, it more so than other people, like in the
Yeah.
exterior circles. But then afterwards, oh my gosh, like you're reflecting on it, you're like, oh man, that has been a source of, because River's getting into teenage years, and so like teenage years is fraught with
Yeah.
potential anger inducing
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
And I've really had to be reflecting on how triggered I get about things and how I respond in those moments. Because man, sometimes I just want to
Yeah.
arr, arr.
Well, that's why one of the methodologies for anger control is if you are the more mature one in the room, you have to act like it. And that's not always easy to do. So if you're in an argument with a teenager, hopefully you're the more mature one in
Right.
the room. And if you are, then it's like, okay, I'm supposed to be the adult here in this circumstance. I've got to be the one to de-escalate this circumstance first, because if I don't, it's just going to keep getting worse. They're not going to be the ones that are going to get it under control. They're less mature than I am. They're kids. They don't know how to get themselves under control. Or it's another adult who doesn't know how to control themselves. I mean, some people have real anger control issues. And it's not like, oh, if they just had better willpower, they wouldn't have this problem. There is a physiological issue with the part of their brain that deals with anger responses. That it can come from severe psychological trauma, or it can come from like blunt force trauma to the head, or having been in circumstances where they had something else occur, maybe that they have a triggered response to a traumatic situation, whatever it is. So, but they have physiological changes to their brain because of these circumstances. And the ability for them to shut off their anger response in the moment where it's happening doesn't exist. And you may or may not know that you're in a argument or an interaction with one of these people. So
It's almost like a survival.
it is a survival instinct.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but you think of it like that. You say they can't shut it off. It's because it's survival mode.
It is survival mode, but it's also, for people, it's survival mode on overdrive. And they don't have an escalation to survival mode. It goes from I'm okay to rage. And there isn't really much of an in-between. Maybe small little signs and gestures that indicate that they're about to hit that point, but then they just go to it. And you may not always understand that that's who you're dealing with in those moments. And having worked with a lot of people in circumstances that get angry real easily, I used to do work inside of prisons. I would do groups or individual therapy. And when you're dealing with people like that, a lot of those people have those anger issues, kind of what led them to prison in the first place. They couldn't control their anger. So I had to learn over time, this is a practice thing, is that if they're escalating, I am immediately de-escalating. So the louder they get, the calmer I get. The more they start to yell, the lower my voice tone goes. I want to immediately, at every instinctual level, not look like a threat. I don't want to run either. It's kind of like dealing with a predator at
yeah.
that moment. It's like if you run, they're going to chase you. But I can't really fight back either, because we could both, or I could definitely get hurt. So instead, I'm just going to stay in my place, get calmer, and let them de-escalate. Because if I don't show any more signs of being threatening, that part of their brain will detect that and start to come down.
And that works in less intense situations too. So like you're talking about in a prison, like in a really intense situation, but like if you're like on an everyday situation with your kid or with your spouse or whoever. If you see they're escalating and you start de-escalating, it helps them to recognize that they're escalating because they're the only one escalating at that point.
Right.
And you're coming back down and remaining calm and you're asking questions and you're doing, you're the calm one in the situation. And whenever Matt was doing this with me, because he used to do this with me a lot when he was first helping me get my anger under control, I would feel crazy. It would make me start to feel crazy or a little bit because I'm out of control in this moment. He's real calm. And I'm like, wait, I'm the one being ridiculous here.
Yeah.
And so it would make me recognize how ridiculous I was being in that moment because he was bringing it down so much.
It takes a lot of control, like self-control, to
Yeah.
not get escalated by somebody doing that. And I think that's the challenge, because a lot of those people that maybe have those anger issues that are less aware of their triggers and how angry they get and how out of control they get, they're not going to have that self-awareness. And so to
Right.
be that other person takes a lot of skill
Yes.
and control of your own emotional triggers. I was having this thought. So we had a family dinner, and Piper had Adventure Time on. Have you?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
yes.
of course.
Oh,
I've seen
yeah.
Adventure Time.
There's so many good lessons in
Oh, yes,
Adventure
it's a great
Time.
show.
But so Flynn, Sweet Pea was out of control, right? Sweet Pea was raging and freaking out, and so Flynn was getting approached by his Fern twin, and Fern twin was like, "Okay, do we slice the tendons on the back of the legs to de-escalate?" And Flynn's like, "No, librarian mode." And so he gets up there and says, "You're fine, everything's okay. You can return the books later. It's no big deal. No late fees." And then Sweet Pea de-escalated, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, Flynn, you're so wise."
Hey, no, the show has great. It has great lessons, and one of the things that's so relatable is because they have so many lessons like that. That is an excellent way to bring other people down, is to lower your voice, to begin to calm yourself. What you'll have to watch out for, though, is this was what would happen sometimes, is that when you are de-escalating, the other person starts to recognize it, and then for a moment they recognize they're the one that's being crazy in the moment, and then they start to feel agitated and shame about that. Like, "Oh, you're making me look stupid right now."
Yeah.
And then they get
You're
mad
treating me
about
like
it.
a child, or
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the response you would always give.
Yes,
"Quit
that's
treating
me.
me like a child."
Yes.
I'm like, how am I doing that right now exactly? Look at you. You're just sitting there. You're mocking me. You're just being calm, but you're really mad. And it was trying to get me to get there where she was because she was angry in that moment.
I wanted to fight.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now, but sometimes we fought.
Yeah.
Sometimes in
There-
those moments it was like, okay, I see you really want to fight. Let's fight. And
But if there was a way not to fight, we wouldn't fight.
but sometimes
Sometimes
fighting
you
is
need to get the energy out.
fighting can be necessary and helpful as long as it's done fairly.
Yeah.
So, we're not name calling. We're not going at each other directly in a way to try to hurt each other. Yes, our voice tones are elevated. Yes, we're not necessarily respecting the "I'm not going to interrupt you" rule. But we're not doing anything to intentionally hurt one another. It's a release of the emotions in that moment. And there were times I had to pick fights with you
Yeah.
to get you to let your anger out because it was so guarded.
Yeah, I wouldn't talk about it because I'm so ashamed of that part of me that I wouldn't let that part of me out. So he would actually have to pick fights with me to get me to even talk. And so that's where for me fights were helpful. And bless my grandma's heart. Bless my grandma's heart. She hated it so bad.
No, she can't stand us.
She could
doing
not
that.
stand it.
She can't stand
She
conflict.
would get the most mild version of him of us doing this, right? And she hated it. She hated it, and I was like, "But Grandma, I love it.
It's
Like
necessary.
this is what I need. This makes me feel so much better. Like it helps me get those thoughts out. It helps me be able to express myself in a way that I never felt comfortable expressing myself before." And so. But all she could see was that it was, and it wasn't even fighting because to me it wasn't fighting. It was like a discussion, but I had to have a heated discussion. I had to have debate and argument with it and come to
Sometimes though it was fighting. I mean, there's plenty of times where I was like, I knew I have to touch a soft point to get
Yeah.
you because you're so balled up and defensive
But
at the
I
moment.
never,
You're
to
not going to
me,
let it out.
never came off. It was never fighting
Yeah.
to me. Like it was never, I was like, Grandma, we're not fighting. We're like, having a conversation, but it was
But an angry one.
but it was an angry, loud. But to me, I was like, we're not fighting. What are you talking about? Like, it was just, yeah.
So it's this is a good time to bring up the idea of managing yourself in order to control anger. So if you happen to be one of those people that does get angry very easily, management of the self is incredibly important. It's almost like you have to manage yourself knowing that there are going to be moments that are going to make you angry. And if you don't manage yourself properly prior to those points, you're far more likely to blow up than if you had managed yourself. So that's why doing things that are like physical outlets for releases of energy, like things like working out or anything that would help you like raise your heart rate, sweat, things like that. Those are good management tools. Doing things like making sure you develop relationships with people who know you well, who you can have conversations and interaction with, so you can get the things off your mind that may be filling up your cup. I try to explain it to people like this, that you kind of have a cup, and a cup can only hold so much water. And so if you got a lot of things in there that's old water that's not been released, your cup is already full. And so if your cup's already brimming to the top and somebody just puts another little drop in it, it overflows. Now you have to deal with that overflow. So development of relationships or having a therapist or doing things like that that can help you release some of that old stale water, it allows you to like be able to take the few drops here and there that get put in,
That's
and you
why
don't have that blow up.
I feel like I can handle my anger a lot better than I used to could. I'm still not great at it. My anger still controls me a lot more than I like to admit, but I'm a lot better than I used to be, and anybody who knew me a long time ago could testify to that. I'm a lot better than I used to be, but I think that the reason is I was able to get rid of some of that old stale water because he helped me be able to let some of that out. I don't need those intense conversations or intense debates like I did early in our relationship because I don't have that pent up aggression anymore.
Right.
So,
No, I haven't had to pick a fight with you in a long
No.
time. No,
I mean, I still get angry, but it's like new water.
yeah, and it's mostly just current circumstances that you and I may not agree on, or we're both just tired.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it may be like trigger old things. Like I still have those triggers.
not
but
nearly as bad.
But it's not nearly as bad as what it used to be.
Yeah, so I mean, so that's part of the management too, is like healing past hurts, healing traumas. Those things help you to begin to manage those circumstances, and then you get to where you don't have the situations that are triggered as easily.
And those somatic experiences help. We were talking about therapy and exercise and, whatever you need to do to get that energy, dance, get it out of your body,
Shed that old water.
Yes, just shed it off.
Yeah.
Shake it off, like Taylor Swift says. Shake it off.
Is that what that song was about?
Sure.
We're gonna go with that. I don't know if I've ever listened to it all the way through. I couldn't tell you.
Well, the hater's gonna hate.
Yeah.
Hate.
Thank you.
So we're just going to shake.
Shake it up.
Okay, so moving on. But I will say that music absolutely can be helpful.
Yeah.
You guys have been talking about playlists.
Yeah.
And kind of playlists that are religious experiences, like songs that were religious experiences for you.
Yeah.
But music is one of the ways that can influence mood. And yeah, they definitely make music for angry people. And they make music that will get people angry or help people bring down
Yes,
anger.
like I was saying, I was listening to Halsey, got a little moody and snippy and in my head, so I had to go to the car and listen to some more lighthearted stuff and do some dancing and then be ready for people again.
Yeah.
I kind of like angry music sometimes, though.
Yeah,
Like if I'm in an
same.
angry place, I used to really like to listen to angry music because it would just help me, like when I was give an outlet to that frustration that I was carrying with me at a
Yeah,
time.
and if you're singing it, like when you're alone, you're just like, rah,
Yeah, it can elevate you, but it's kind of like some of those moments where you've kind of got that energy is stuck, and you don't have an outlet for it, and you just want to play something that gives you the ability to have that outlet, so that those feelings can come out of you. The problem becomes like if you're an angry person and you listen to angry music pretty well
Only.
exclusively.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not good.
No, you need him. You need it in those moments to have that release and get that energy out. But you don't need to just keep listening to it because it's a repetitive nature inside your head of the same message of you should be angry, and you
It's
got
an atmosphere that
It
you
is.
create. And it's good to like I have a playlist for all kinds of moods.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know? And sometimes like I need to get all up in that mood for a minute. But if I stay there,
Oh, yeah.
like,
No matter
it's
what it
good.
is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No
Yeah.
good for anybody.
No,
like,
unless it's a happy mood. I guess that's always good. But
unless it's like blindly like I'm just going to avoid all the bad
Yeah.
things that are going on around me and be blindly happy.
and if somebody's always happy, then that's kind of annoying too.
It is.
That's true.
Well, yeah. If anybody's any mood state all the time, it can get annoying. You need fluctuations in moods. So another thing that you can do to manage your anger is pay attention to the things that you have around you in your life. Like, what type of media do you consume? What kind of things do you talk about with people that you're around? What kind of people are you around on a regular basis? I think. I don't know I think it's a YouTube documentary or something that may have been even on Netflix. I haven't seen it. This was just like somebody's recap of it, but they were talking about like how their dad, who was like in his 50s, was a really like kind, sweet individual, and then had gotten into watching a lot of far right-wing conservative media stuff, and then that began to think all the things that he consumed and a lot of conspiracy theories, and he just became an angry, hateful individual. And so basically the mom and the wife went in and blocked him from all of those things, got the parental controls, blocked him from those stations where he couldn't consume it anymore, and within a month he was back to himself again. But he had gotten caught up in the things that were trying to generate anger as
yeah.
a way to try to get
And
a response out of an individual.
Just to point out, it doesn't matter if it was right or left.
No.
There's both on both sides. There's ways.
Yeah.
There's anger that you can
consuming
get into.
anything that puts you in a circumstance of we are trying to evoke anger to get a response out of you so that we can get you to do the things we want you to do. If you're consuming those things all the time, those people are very good at manipulating
Yeah.
people.
That's what I was going to say. It's manipulation. They are doing it to increase viewership
Yes.
on whatever side it is of
There
the
is that
spectrum.
righteous anger, but if it's not your righteous anger, is it really righteous anger? Like, you know what I mean?
It's the
like
manipulation of righteous
right, exactly.
anger.
Like
Yeah.
if you're not, if like we talked about before, righteous anger is the only healthy anger to have. But and you can feel that righteous anger, but there's so many people following other people's righteous anger
Yes.
is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
get your own righteous anger. you
Yeah,
know?
because what those people are doing is they're manipulating the act of having righteous anger. So they're throwing things out there till they get like it's bait until enough of an audience bites. And once they bite, they're like, okay, we've tapped into something people are angry about. Now, we can take the general thing that people are angry about. Doesn't matter what it is. The world's changing around them really fast. They're confused by a lot of things. They feel marginalized, whatever. You can tap into something that does evoke righteous anger. And then you start to manipulate it. And then you start to make them think that other people are against them. Now the whole world's against you. Now this is the only group of people that really cares about you. And they start to isolate you that way into making you, using anger to make you feel like it's an us versus them circumstance and that's everywhere around you. So you have to be on guard all the time because everyone is against you who isn't already on your side. So it's a very black and white way of thinking. And if you live in a black and white way of thinking, it's easy to justify staying angry all the time.
If you're already hyper vigilant, you already carry a lot of anger. That's very easy to be comfortable in.
So you have to start to remove yourself from those things. Like I noticed that you, like on your Facebook page, because you get angry so easily, you just remove people who post inflammatory things. And I just look at it like, okay, that was silly, or that.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. So the people that post inflammatory things, you have to get rid of
Yeah.
them. It doesn't bother me as bad, but there are times where I've seen enough of it, or I'm in a bad mood, and I'm like, I definitely don't need this.
I
Right
usually
now.
just read the tea, though.
Oh yeah, all of the drama that's going on.
Wow, look at that.
No,
and
I
look
can't
at
do
it
that.
being way over there and me not being part of it.
I can't do
Someone
that.
else's drama. Yay.
I wish I could do that. I'm just like unfollow. I can't do that.
I consume and giggle most of the time.
But what we consume is inevitably what we end up producing. So we consume anger, we end up producing a lot of anger. And then we start to really do that with people that are around us who have no intention of like harming us or like being against us, but because they may not share the exact same view you do, now they're an enemy, and it begins to isolate you even more. So we get into those isolated states, and this can happen with just about any form of media. So we have to be careful what we consume. We just also have to make sure that we start to put other things back in that consumption that bring about something that feels meaningful, positive, something that feels like we're really trying to at least get something good out of it. The hard part is, for some people, is telling the difference between the two. Because they think, I'm angry about this, this is a good cause, I should continue to focus on this. They have a hard time saying, well, let's put that to the side and let's come over here and focus on something that's different, but a little more meaningful in a different way. They have a hard time doing that because they've shaped their personality to that. So we have to be careful with what we consume. I think the last part of it is we have to, again, surround ourselves with support systems.
Yeah.
We have to have people around us that can tell us when we're being angry and that our anger is affecting other people, or that people that can recognize when we're starting to get into that place and go, okay, hey, what's up? I do that a lot. It's probably annoying to people, but I do see at a point like, okay, I see the slightest little inclination that something could be going on with you. I just want to ask because I want to make sure, is that something that's going to like fester and grow and I'm going to have to deal with later when it's like this big? I'd rather deal with it when it's this big. So part of it's selfish, but part of it is I do care about the person and I don't want them to live in an agitated, frustrated, angry way. But I also don't want to deal with it when it's a big deal either. So that we do that with our kids all the time. We do it with
They hate it more than anybody else.
They do. They do. Well, we do it with our employees, with our friends. You know, it's just kind of like, hey, it seems like you're a little off or something's bothering you. What's going on? Give them ability to release that early so it doesn't become a big angry mess that everybody has to deal with, and then they feel bad about letting it out on everybody. Because if you're a people person and you blow up on somebody, then you go back and you feel bad about it, and then now you got all this guilt and shame and frustration about yourself.
Yeah, that you didn't need.
Yeah.
You already got plenty of it.
Yeah, it's like you didn't need to add any more to that pile. So it is good to surround yourself with a group of people who care about you, who recognize the problems that are going on, and can help you get all that stuff out before it becomes a major issue. So I think on that note, we'll just transition to the idea, if you don't have that in your life, or maybe the people you have in your life are just not good at that, or maybe the people you have in your life are making your anger, whatever it is, counseling is here to help.
Yep.
You can reach out to us if you're needing counseling services at Affinity Counseling Services on Facebook. That's AFFINITY. You can contact us here in our Arkansas office at 870-324-5122 or our Missouri office at 573-840-0440, or you can reach us at counselingwithaffinity.com. Anything else that you need to promote? You usually talk about a lovely pause at this point.
We got some Angry August worksheets, and like I said, we've got our raffle. So we've got a meeting this weekend, so I'm sure after the meeting, we'll have a lot more stuff to talk about. So
yeah, good. So we're going to be starting that raffle here soon to help raise money for a lovely pause. All right, we'll talk more about what we're raffling later, but
I think we already told
Did we?
them what we were raffling off. Yeah, I think we did that last
oh,
week.
did we?
We touched on it.
Yeah,
Oh,
and yeah.
okay. Well, yeah, it's meat.
Yeah,
Yay!
we're raffling off, starting off $200, right?
Yeah, $200 worth of meat from Garcia's Meats.
Yeah.
Located in Marmaduke, but also online. What's the website?
www.4x4garciasmeats.com.
The number 4, the letter X, and then the number 4.
Yeah,
right?
like 4x4.
4x4. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. And I've heard really excellent reviews, by the way, on the
It's
quality.
great.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going to have to order some for myself. But we're going to be giving away $200 there, and then for every $1,000 you raise, I think, what are you going to do? Add
We're
another
going to add
$200?
another $200 worth of meat.
Great. So the more people put in, the more chances to win. So,
Yep.
all right, that'll be cool. We'll get more details on that later on.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. If you're watching us live today, we're going to do a second episode that I'm not a part of. So,
Jillian,
Special guest of Jillian.
Yeah.
yes,
Jillian's
our
gonna join
intern
us.
will be here. So, thank you very much for joining us, and I'm out.
Bye.